I was just jumping in. We'll get started here in a second. We're just waiting for Spencer to join us. Really excited to have Spencer with us today. When it comes to golf fitness training, I don't know if there's someone who has more experience and more excitement to bring to the table and share with us. They've been a great user of SuperSpeed, and here's Spencer here. So Spencer, good to have you here. I'm going to adjust my camera settings a little bit now that we're kind of split screen. You hear me okay,
Hey,
Spencer?
Doc. I hear you great. You hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you great. So, again, we're super excited to have Spencer with us. Again, I'm going to tilt that up even a little bit more. So, for those of you who've kind of been here before on an Instagram Live with me, we're going to do the same kind of thing where Spencer and I have a couple things we're going to talk about for about 10, 12 minutes. Feel free to throw your questions in the chat space as we kind of roll in right now. We'll monitor those. Save them for the end, ask them as they come up, and we'll be happy to take those questions. So for those of you who don't know Spencer, you should know Spencer. He does incredible work. He's probably most well known in the golf community for being John Rahm's trainer, and has helped him a ton over the past years really get his body in a place where he can perform the way he has at the high level that he does. But besides that, Spencer has some incredible facilities in Arizona. He's using some awesome technology to test his athletes. And so, again, we're really excited to have Spencer here with us today and chat a little bit about some of the things that we're kind of both doing. And my plan today is to kind of shut my mouth and just kind of feed Spencer some questions, because I know most of you are here to listen to Spencer, not to the doctor. So, Spencer, anything you want to add before we get started?
No, well, first of all, it's an honor to be here. I mean, I've really enjoyed the SuperSpeed product and what it's been able to do for our clients and just the application side of it. And, I think you have a lot to shoot, Doc, so let's not shut that mouth too much, because there's a lot to share with our IG community and our SuperSpeed community. And I think one whole thing that we're always trying to look to do, we're on a mission to do two things here at THP, Tatum Human Performance, is optimize human performance and unlock human potential. So with that being said, let's rock and roll.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. So I wanted to try and make this, kind of as informative, but also hopefully people can take away some practical things that they can use. So again, we're speaking to the golf community here, Spencer. So if you had to think about maybe some of the keys for rotational training, what are some of those keys, some of those pillars of what you try to do in some of your training, maybe with John and maybe with just any amateur golfer?
Yeah, so we look at a funnel, right? We look at basically a decision logic tree and a funnel that we're looking at. And I think the two things we're always trying to look at is the being in optimal levels or acceptable levels, or is it the state that human beings that we need to get into? Then that's what we're always looking at. So we look at a funnel. The first thing we look at is, do you have health and do you have a lifestyle to support what you're trying to achieve? So if you're trying to get bigger, faster, stronger, swing it further, hit the ball further, like, you need to have a lifestyle that's going to support that from the stress you're putting on the body. So are you sleeping enough? Are you hydrating enough? Do you, like we work with Dr. Andy Galloper on nutrition, right, with John, and we use nutrition coaches and mental coaches, right, to make sure that you are a healthy individual. The second thing we're looking at, is do you have the movement acquisition to get in a position to create a pattern, right? If you can't get in a great setup position, it's already going to be off, right? And then can you create that pattern? Can you create that pattern in the load? And then then we're looking at, as we're looking at that, we're moving into the fitness conversation, because we don't have health and we don't have movement. The performance conversation is really tough to have, or the fitness conversation, because a lot of people think it's a fitness issue when it's really a movement issue or a health issue. So, or a lifestyle issue. So then we look at, okay, do you have enough lower body strength? Do you have enough lower body power? Do you have enough core power, core strength and stability and rotational power? So looking at those things, and one of the cool tools that we like to use on that is, Hawkins force plates, because it's a great understanding of force plate data, like a ground reaction force, which is a big hot topic right now, which we were talking about earlier, Ty, Doc, and, Proteus motion is a great way to test 3D motion, like looking at, okay, I can see the amount of acceleration, de-acceleration forces, because I think going into the non-dominant conversation it's understanding, can you create acceleration? And then how hard can you stop to allow the continued acceleration to continue to flow through that golf swing and release it? So then we look at aerobic capacity, because a lot of people think, well, I stand there, I hit, it's less than 1 second, I walk, I hit. Well, you know what? You need to be aerobically fit, because aerobic fitness helps in recovery. It helps in performance and clarity. Like, one of the cool things that we're using right now, like as we're preparing, as we're going to the playoffs, is using a heart rate monitor, to where we're bringing our heart rate up. Like today, we're doing Versa Climber for 150 feet, all right, at 85% of max heart rate. step off and see how fast we can bring that heart rate back down. How fast can we control that breathing? Because if you're in a stressful moment, you know, Doc, like breathing is king. So getting that, be able to control the state of mind is huge.
Yeah, that's cool. I loved it, the Ryder Cup, when they would show the heart rate data, and you see these people that are like, you know, they're getting amped up and jacked up with these shots, but in order to get over, they've got to settle down and be able to execute shots with a little bit of an elevated heart rate. So I want to pick on something you said there, which is something that a lot of people ask us, Spencer, which is just this kind of role of non-dominant training. And you talked about this role of deceleration. Maybe if you can even just share maybe one practical exercise that you do that maybe targets that non-dominant rotational, you know, even strength, speed, power, whatever it be.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm here, our Legacy Performance Center down here in Mesa. We have right here, we're in a 320 acre sports park, and we're in our performance center, which is 25,000 square feet. And one of the exercises that we like to look at is, without moving our feet, is our baseline med ball toss. You see the load, and then boom, throw it out as far as you can. So this is a 6-pound ball. So for females who use 4, males who use 8 pounds, right? So very simple. And then I'm looking to see how far can they throw it. And what I'm looking for on a non-dominant, we use this as a screen or a test or assessment, is one, what is the distance, right? How far do they throw it? For a male, they, you know, for optimal to be hitting, what we've seen, the correlation, there's a high correlation between their baseline toss and their club head speed and distance, their carry. So they should be throwing it over 30 feet. Female should be over 20. And then what we're looking on now on the other side is we'll look at their dominant side, and then we'll test their non-dominant side and see how far they can throw. And what we're looking for there, is it within 10%? Because if we're within 10%, then we know we're never going to be symmetrical, right? This is an asymmetrical sport, right? We can all agree on that. But being able to have that within 10% range, that means we have enough ability to create power and stop. So now our health and resiliency goes up. And then what's happening is, as we're coming down, is we're able to learn how to post. And when we come back in our backswing, now we can stop and really load it, because, you know, as a biomechanics professor, if you don't have a stable surface to load on and turn into that internal hip rotation, you're basically just getting that forward lunge. And then guess what? You're going to steep it out, little early extension, and you either hook it or slice it right.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you bring up this idea of what's happening on that trail leg and the lead leg. And I think when we do activities like med ball throws or super speed swings, and we can swap those and make the trail leg a lead leg and vice versa, it just equips the golfer with so much more abilities to execute the golf swing. Now, you gave some really great metrics, some things that I think can test. And since I've been down at TPI, I know that you do a lot of stuff with them and some great work. And so you spit out a couple of things, right? So let's just recap that, right? 30 feet for our male golfers, 20 feet for our female golfers for that kind of rotational shot put test. And correct me if I'm wrong, was it 6 kilograms for men, 4 kilograms for women?
2 kilograms for women.
Perfect.
And 4 kilograms for men.
Okay. And that's the kind of test that you could do, you know, on your own. It's something you could look at and say, hey, you know, maybe I'm off balance and I want to be within 10%. I love that you say that. Like, we're not pretending that golfers need to be perfectly symmetrical, but there does need to be something, you know, close in that 10% range, I think, to help prevent injury and allow them to execute those shots. Now, there was a question that came in, Spencer, and I'm going to ask this because I think it kind of ties in with what you just talked about. So someone brought up, what are some key data points that you're looking at fairly regularly with a golfer like John? Obviously, that's something they're really interested in. So anything that comes to your mind?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll kind of walk you through a week of what we kind of do on a week-to-week basis. First thing, we're coming off the road, whether it's a Monday or Tuesday, depending on the distance of travel, because one thing I think everybody should remember, it's not how far you travel, it's how many time zones you travel. That has more effect on the body as far as HRV and recovery. So one thing we're looking at, the first thing we're looking at is the movement screen, right? Is it within acceptable norms? And that way we can see, okay, and the movement screen, when I look at the TPI movement screen that we do, I'm looking at how is it to that specific person, right? Because even though it may not be as good as we want the TPI screen, but it's meets that person's characteristics to where they are today. So that's one thing. The second thing we'll look at grip strength right and left to see with it how our just rate of force production, how we can stabilize. So that's one thing we're looking at. We're looking to see, based on our average our average baseline that we're constantly, our mean number that we're hitting, is that within 10%. So that's
Okay.
one thing we're looking at. The next thing we're looking at is counter movement jump, right? Counter movement jump to see, how is their CNS? How is their stretch shortening cycle, or their ability to pop and get off the plates? So we're looking at that, and we're looking at all, like, that's the KPI would be like, okay, so if the jump's 20, what are the variables underneath to see, okay, two things we're really looking at there is our jump momentum, how well we can move our mass, right? Mass times acceleration. Or we're also looking at their breaking that impulse, because like we were talking about earlier, the better you can deaccelerate, the way I always like to talk about it is, like, if you're Ferrari and you got a Prius brakes, it's not going to work. You got to have Ferrari performance brakes if you're going to run that Ferrari and run it hot. So making sure you're having those brakes, so braking, necking force, how hard can they? So that's some things we're looking at there. And then we'll also look at his rotational power on our Proteus and see
Okay.
his baseline shot on the Proteus. And then last thing, we'll look at trap bar deadlift at 225 to see how well he's moving. And that doesn't all happen in one day. It happens throughout the course of the week. And all we're trying to do in season is just making sure that we're staying there, or we're having error detection system. Okay, we need more recovery. Hey, we need to reduce the intensity of training, because there's not much we can really do, because our work needs to be done in our off season, or when we have like a 3-week break. Right now, we're really focused on gearing up and building our aerobic capacity right now.
Yeah, so someone asked a question that came in the chat space that I think keys
Sure.
into this, and it's probably dependent upon what you just brought up, which is how these baseline assessments go in, and maybe what he has
Mm-hmm.
from week to week. And we've got recreational golfers that they're gearing up for a club championship or a high level amateur event. How long is a typical workout that you might run a golf athlete through?
So in season, right, because we're spending a lot of time on the course, and I'm always interested in their, like, we use Oura Ring to measure our recovery scores as one way we look at their HRV and the resting heart rate and sleep data. But in season, I try to keep it to where it's around 60 minutes, right? Just making sure we're checking our boxes, because they're going to spend a lot of time in the course. Also, too, like, they've been on the road for 2 weeks. Like, they need to go home and spend some time with their family, their loved ones. So they just need time just to be and decompress. So making sure that that's there. When we're in the all season, we're looking at about 90 minutes. We're in there,
Okay.
depending on what we're trying to do. Sometimes it's 45, sometimes it's 90, but on average, it's around like an hour 15.
Okay. I want to ask a follow-up question to that, because you talked about them being home with family. And obviously our professional golfers probably have a little bit more access to maybe equipment or home gyms or things. But let's just say recreational golfer, and maybe they have a desk job. Is there one piece of equipment or one exercise that maybe they could get and do pretty regularly at home with minimal equipment that you would see have a great improvement in maybe their golf swing, their speed, things like that?
Yeah, I would say really there's two movements that I feel are key, right? That if I had to pick just one, just straight up one, it's the Turkish get up, right? Because the Turkish get up teaches sequencing. It does mobility, does stability. It's also a self movement screen that you can do, because you got to go from the ground to a standing position, back down. If you're not familiar with Turkish get up, I strongly advise is find a Strong First professional, which is certified by Pavel, which is the leader in kettlebells, or find Dr. Mark Chang and some of the work he's done, because he's really been a leader in that. He works with us with our K3 martial arts program. The other thing I would look at, the second thing, if I had to pick the second one, would be the swing, right? And the get up would be first, and then the swing. So the thing about the get up helps with sequencing, movement, mobility, stability, strength, and then our swing is for striking and power, right? So, and that's so it's just like the SuperSpeed Club, which I have right here, right? If we're training speed and power, it's short bouts, big rests, and making sure that we're hitting the right intensities, and then we're done. We're out.
Awesome. I love that, Spencer, because I think it gives a practical idea of, all you need for a Turkish get up, if you're not familiar with that, and probably some of you are searching that right now. Spencer's saying that we know this is something that's going to really help our golfers, but all it's going to take is a kettlebell, right? So you get a kettlebell,
or you can use your shoe,
or a shoe,
or even we when we teach the kettlebell swing, when we teach the get up, in a group setting with a team, we take them, have their shoes off, take one shoe on. They got to go up and down to get up and not lose the shoe. So now you have the feedback from the ground and you have a feedback loop up top. So now you're hitting both, right? Because I think the one thing we don't do, we don't spend enough time on the ground in America, or other countries we do. And then if you want to take a no level, you go total minimalist equipment, take half a water bottle with half water, go up and down, don't lose it. If you can do that, you truly own your movement. Then the force and power expression, no problem.
That's awesome. That's cool because now we don't even need any equipment, right? We have that to really work on the stability and the transfer of power. We got the SuperSpeed clubs to swing to get that force transmission and speed. Yep. So Spencer, there's another question that came in as we were chatting. Again, if you have a question, pop it in. We're going to kind of start wrapping things up here. So this is a question: how can we tie in sequence training, and what sequence drills can we implement to avoid getting too upper body dominant, right? So there may be some either exercises, drills, things like that, that if we're trying to prevent the upper body dominant swing and really engage that lower body to begin with.
So I think there's two things here. One, to get up, it will help that, right? Especially if you do it slow. So my understanding of when I look at a mastery of a skill set or a movement is, can you take something fast and make it slow? Right, so kind of like a Tai Chi martial arts approach. So now we have to do it. So one of the things, like with Dr. Chang and Pavel, is that you have to do a one get up and one get up down in 4 minutes, nice and smooth. Right, so that's one thing. Wow. And the second part of it is the second part of it is, if I was going to look at, okay, now I want to take it to a layer higher, is doing it with a rip trainer. Now, what I like about the rip trainer is that if you're like, so I'm gonna step back here, I'm imagining I got my SuperSpeed club stick here. I forgot the other product that Scotty Scheffler's using, but it's another, right? So if I leave my upper body and I'm here and my legs are not through, I'm gonna get yanked, right, back. So it's making you make sure I finish through the range of motion, the right sequencing. So now if I leave with my hips with the rip trainer, which we know that 150 to 200% of club head force comes from the lead leg, not the trail leg. Yep. And as you're driving through here, now my hips go, now my arms get here, and I can hold it for a couple of seconds. Now I know my sequencing is correct, right? So that's one easy, quick fix. Or you just take a band, like over a band that's like really small, that's not too heavy. Like the resistance doesn't need to be heavy; it just needs to be heavy enough, because it's going to be no resistance here, and then it's going to be resistance at the end, right? So it's dynamic resistance. Or we can use a Kaiser machine or a cable machine. But I really like having the band because you're going from light to heavy, and it's really making you finish that concentric pattern.
Yeah, perfect. So those are some good tips on that. I might add just briefly that when I get SuperSpeed users on my force plates, if I want to get them to get more force to the lead leg earlier in the swing and feel comfortable with that, Spencer brought up that 150 to 200%. That's what we want to see, and really elite level players and high swing speeds. That step drill, when done properly and initiating that step and then coming through, I'll see some really incredible things in increases of peaks, but also an improvement of that timing. And I think what Spencer brought up too, that ability to get in that position and be comfortable there, right? Finishing those are great things as well. So,
and another great drill, you could do right here with the SuperSpeed is you put the hands in, like if I'm a right-handed player, right? So I'm a mixed grip. So one of the simple things, take the SuperSpeed club. We also use a mobility stick, and you're going to get into that load, right? And you're going to think about somebody's trying to push the stick forward, so you really have to hold it there. And all you're doing is try to fire those hips, and then fire the hips, and then let it go, right? And then you could really see that. And then when you go back, and then a great thing to do is now go back and test it, right? Go back into your SuperSpeed, make sure you have the radar to make sure you have it. Now you have a feedback loop to see, because if you're swinging fast and you're swinging the right order, it should be effortless and effectively, and you should just be able to release that club and woof.
Yeah, and that's a cool component that you just brought up too, which let me just say this. Spencer and I have been chatting on the phone off and on for the past month talking about this. And we maybe got through, 10% of what we wanted to talk about today in these 20 minutes. And so, again, that's something that we wanted to touch on. And so, Spencer agreed, hey, if we like doing this, let's do this again. And so, stay tuned. Spencer and I want to talk a little bit more about maybe using that radar to assess some readiness, using it to see kind of how effective things are going. We had a lot of conversations about kind of force productions and different things. So there's quite a bit more that Spencer and I'd like to share with you. Again, today we just wanted to thank Spencer for taking the time to jump on with us. He's got a busy schedule. And now that I'm actually seeing his facility in person, this is awesome because he said, hey, you got to get down here sometime soon, Tyler. And so now that I've seen it in person, I'm definitely going to get that on the radar, Spencer. So, man, what a facility.
There's our force plates, Proteas, Woodway, treadmills, watt bikes. So if you want to know what you need to do to get better, hit us up.
Yeah. Now, Spencer, why don't you tell them just how they can find you? We'll obviously tag you in all this stuff, but are there places they can come find you and read more about the great work you're doing?
Super simple. THP.fit is our website. It's also our IG, which we produce a lot of content. This and most of my staff is so great. I mean, you can watch the 30 for 30, THP 30 for 30 on there, Crocodile Hunter, and we kind of try to bring an entertainment factor to it, but we also try to bring a lot of tips of how to use assessment, how to implement the strategy. For us, it's all about the execution of what's the screen, what's the information telling us, then how do we apply it in the most simplistic form is to make the biggest change. So there's that, our website, thp.fit. You can also email me at spencer@thp.fit, and then my IG is wintheday10. So looking forward to answering any questions, thoughts, ideas. Love to share knowledge and just, see what we can do to propel the movement forward and propel the industry forward.
Awesome. Hey, thanks again, Spencer. Stay tuned. If you enjoyed this, keep your eyes out. We'll probably have another one of these coming at you in the next couple of weeks to get to all those other things that we didn't talk about. So thanks again, Spencer. Have a great day.